Welcome. Thank you for standing by. Throughout today's conference, all participants will remain in listen-only mode. During the Q&A portion of the call, you may press star 1 on your touch-tone phone if you would like to ask a question. Today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now I'll turn your conference over to Cheryl Warner. Thank you. You may begin.
Good afternoon. This is Cheryl Warner from NASA's Office of Communications. Thank you for joining us today to discuss NASA's ongoing assessment of adding crew to the first integrated mission of the Space Launch System rocket and Orion spacecraft, which will launch from the agency's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. NASA is building these deep space capabilities to take humans farther into the solar system than we have ever traveled, and ultimately to Mars. The SLS and Orion missions, coupled with record levels of private investments in space, will help NASA and America continue to unlock the mysteries of space and to ensure that this nation's world preeminence in exploring the cosmos. Here to discuss the study are William Gerstenmaier, Associate Administrator of NASA's Human Explorations and Operations Mission Directorate in Washington, and William Hill, Deputy Associate Administrator for Exploration Systems Development in Washington. Each speaker will provide brief remarks, and then we'll open up the lines for questions. Your phones are on mute now. To get into the question queue, please press star 1 on your phone. The operator will call on you and open your mic. Please stick to one question and identify to whom it is directed. We want to ensure that we accommodate requests from each of participants, and we have a limited amount of time for questions. About 1 hour after we conclude, you can listen to a replay of this teleconference toll-free at 888-335-7273. The passcode is 22417. Again, that number is 888-335-7273, and the passcode is 22417. First, we will hear from Mr. Gerstenmaier.
Thanks, Cheryl. And thank you all for being here today. We want to talk to you about this feasibility study we've been asked by Robert and the new administration to take a look at of adding crew to the Exploration Mission 1 flight test. Again, I want to stress to you that it's a feasibility study, so when we get done with this, we won't come out with a hard recommendation one way or the other. We're going to talk about essentially the advantages and the disadvantages of adding crew to EM1. So along those lines, we were given this task roughly about a week ago. On Friday, I sent a memo out and appointed a team underneath myself and along with Bill to go take a look at the details associated with adding crew to EM1. We did our first telecon as a team on Monday of this week, and the teams are off looking at things and evaluating things. So in terms of what we're looking at and some of the parameters, we know that there are certain systems that needed to be added to EM1 even to add crew, because if you remember, EM1 did not have a life support system on board. The crew displays were not totally functional yet. The abort system was an inert abort system on EM1, so all those things will have to be changed. So we have a good crisp list of all the things we would physically have to change from a hardware standpoint on the vehicle. And then we asked the team to take a look at potentially what additional tests would be needed to add crew, what the additional risk would be associated with adding crew. And then we also wanted the teams to talk to us about the benefits of having crew on the first flight. And the benefits are simply we'll get a chance to test systems in a very rigorous way with crew on board. Some of the life support systems, we'll get to see crew interaction with the vehicle, which helps us get to an overall readiness standpoint. So again, it's kind of a feasibility study. We're taking a look to see what the advantages of adding crew are, what the disadvantages are. And I want to stress that we're not really changing our baseline plans. We're still working for EM1 as soon as we can get it ready to fly, probably late in 2018. And I know you heard yesterday at the Aerospace Safety Advisory Panel that the tornado did some damage at MAF. It's probably slowed some of our tank production work down by a couple months. We're still assessing what that means to the schedule. And I also know you've heard earlier that the exploration service or European service module coming from Europe has been delayed from our original planning several months. We knew that. We were able to accommodate some of that schedule slip from the service module, but we're looking to see how all that fits. So Bill and the teams are looking at that to see where things fit. But overall, we're still on the baseline plan of EM1 first and then EM2. but this study lets us go look at what things we would want to add and we would want to change to go add crew to the vehicle. So we were given the ability to take a little longer time. The study will determine how much additional time is needed to be added to add crew to EM1. So we will definitely have a slip from when we could fly EM1 at the earliest possible date to add crew, because we have to add some new systems. We also recognize we'll need to add some additional funding to add some of the systems in that are missing, and we've been given that. So some of the output of the study will be how much additional time is needed, and then how much additional funding is needed to go add crew to the flight. So that'll be part of the output, as well as, probably more importantly, the benefits. And we've kind of constrained some things. We've constrained the flight to occur probably sometime in 2019. If it goes much beyond 2019, then basically the plan we've got today with EM2 with crew is probably as good a plan as we have, and there's not a tremendous advantage. So we've asked the team to limit some of the changes and things to bound forward. And Bill can talk to you about some of the other things that we've done to limit the team. But I think that's enough of a kind of a background, and I look forward to answering your questions, and we'll have a good discussion hopefully today. So with that, Bill, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Sure, thank you. As Gerst said, we've had early discussions with the transition team both before the inauguration and after about accelerating our crew capability, and one option is to accelerate EM2. The other option is to accelerate or put crew on EM1. We do know we have constraints between EM1 and EM2 because the addition of the exploration upper stage and the modifications we have to make to the mobile launcher and infrastructure in the vehicle assembly building here at Kennedy. So we kind of ruled out trying to accelerate EM2 and focused our attention on the potential for adding crew to EM1. I had a brief assessment done about a month ago in anticipation, just to see if it was in the realm of possibility, and we believe it is. So now we have this feasibility assessment ongoing to refine and dig further into what is it really going to take to do this, and what are the risks, what are the benefits. As Gerst said, we continue to keep our baseline plan for EM1 and EM2 as our priority, and we are not going to let this feasibility assessment interrupt the activities ongoing there. We do know that at some point, if we do get asked to do this or directed to do this, we would have to go back and take some of the equipment out of Orion that we've already installed just to get access to certain areas to install the environmental control and life support systems. We gave the team a crew number of 2, and we've asked them to take a look at what we had planned from a mission profile standpoint for EM2, and that is a multi-trans lunar injection free return trajectory around the moon and back, approximately an 8 to 9 day mission with about a day in high Earth orbit or high Earth orbit around Earth at the beginning to check out the life support systems. So that's basically where we're at. Look forward to answering any questions you might have.
Thank you both. So we are ready for question and answers now. Again, if you would like to ask a question, please press *1 on your phone. The operator will announce you and open and close your mic for you to ask your question. Please stick to one question and identify to whom it is directed. If we have time, we'll go back for second questions. Operator, our first question.
Jeff Faust, your line is open.
Hi. Question for Bill Gerstenmaier. I just wanted to clarify one point here. It sounded like you're saying that you would basically be looking at doing basically the EM2-like mission with EM1, but with the upper stage that is planned for use on EM1, the integrated ICPS stage rather than the EUS stage. Can you do that sort of mission like that with the less powerful upper stage?
Yeah, again, from From an overall technical standpoint, the ICPS provides enough capability to do the mission that Bill described, and so we don't need the full capability of the EUS to do that mission. The problem is ICPS is a Delta IV upper stage that's been flown before. It's slightly modified, but it's not human rated in the sense that we were going to do with the EUS. We're essentially human rating the exploration upper stage, the more powerful stage from the very beginning. So one of the tasks we've asked the team to go look at is what changes we need to make to this interim cryopropulsion upper stage to do the mission that we would like it to go do. So what Bill Hill described to you is we think we can set up a profile that limits crew risk exposure. So if something doesn't go right with the upper stage or there's problems with the upper stage, we can abort out of that and still get the crew home safely. We might lose the mission, but we could still protect the crew. So we've asked the teams to go look at that, see how feasible that is. And that's not all that different from what we did with cargo flights. If you remember, we didn't do a test flight with the first cargo delivery flights to station. We actually put some cargo on those flights. But we recognized that we would sacrifice mission success, or we would sacrifice getting the cargo to station to protect station. So it's the same kind of thing here. We might give up on the lunar activity if it turned out something didn't work appropriately with the stage. We're also looking potentially at adding some micrometeoroid debris protection potentially to the ICPS to give it some protection for these high elliptical Earth orbits that Bill described to you. So basically, you've got it right. We'd look at basically the EM2 profile of the translunar injection coupled with with using the ICPS.
Thank you. Next question, operator.
Eric Berger from ARS Technica, your line is open.
Hi, Gerst and Bill. Thanks so much for doing this. I got a question about safety. You recently, Gerst, had some remarks about safety and commercial crew, and I'm wondering about the philosophy here. Obviously, historically, NASA traditionally has flown on rockets, without crew. That there was a deviation from that with shuttle because it had to happen that way. How do you feel in terms of, in 2019, making the decision about putting humans on a rocket without having that rocket flown before?
Again, we'll go through all the activity to make sure that we understand the risks associated with this flight. So, we're going to do an altitude abort test. We've already done a pad abort test with the Orion capsule, so we'll do some kind of altitude abort test. We'd probably like to do that in front of this flight to make sure the abort system works. That protects us from any failures on the SLS. We need to make sure that that's okay and we're comfortable with that. And then we need to design the mission the way I described to try to get the risks within the bounds of what we think are reasonable. And then I think the other thing that's important is we need to go look at what do we really gain by putting crew on this flight. Does this really advance significantly our overall ability to get to a capability to take humans routinely as it can be to the vicinity of the moon and operate safely. So we'll actively trade this risk against the benefits, and we'll look at the mission profile and see if there's things we can do to keep the risks tolerable, and that's really what we're doing through this feasibility study. And Bill, is there anything you'd want to add on this?
Well, I would just add that it is going to be a risk balance. We'll take a look at the risk versus the benefit, and as Gerst said, see what the benefit is of pulling crew ahead of time. One of the benefits that we understand today, if we can fly the EM2 profile mission on EM2 to do more, because we have we at least have some experience and we can do more with that as opposed to the profile we earlier anticipated with flying crew first time on EM2. We also, the feasibility or the potential assessment that I had done about a month ago notionally says that we can pull EM or AA2, the altitude abort test, ahead of EM1. That determines whether how far into 19 we move it, but we believe we can do that early in 2019 ahead of doing this test. So we would at least have the benefit of that abort test prior to putting a full-up launch abort system on EM1.
Thank you.
So again, I would just say the way we drew it is we recognize this will be an increased risk, and we take that increased risk and we take it against the benefits that we gain by doing this, and we say, hey, is that something that is worthwhile for us to go do? And then we have an agency-wide discussion on whether this is the appropriate risk for us to take, and we have astronauts on the team participating, and they'll contribute directly into this discussion.
Thank you. Next question.
Next, we have Marcia Dunn with the Associated Press.
Yes, hello, Bill Gerstenmaier. Under the current plan, when is your best date for EM2 as currently envisioned? And I'm wondering if part of the reason for perhaps putting crew on the very next flight, how much does public appeal or publicity or a little, try and get more people on board in the public, how much of a gain would you see in that? Is that part of this as well?
I guess EM2 right now, we've been planning for August of 2021, and that's right now there's a tie between when EM1 flies and when EM2 can fly, and that's roughly 33 months is the minimum time between EM1 and EM2, and that's driven by the fact that we have to change the mobile launch platform to accommodate the 40-foot taller rocket associated with EM2. So that date is August of 2021. In terms of what you described as bringing maybe the public on board or whatever, you're probably a better judge than I am of that. We look at it from an overall program standpoint. How do we advance our program needs? And then I think others on the outside can weigh in whether they think this is a boom from a bringing the public on board and then flying crew first. That's something that we won't really look at. We'll look at others to see what they say. I was surprised with EFT1 how much public excitement there was with EFT1, even though there was no crew on Exploration Flight Test 1. So I think there's a pretty exciting mission we can even make with EM1. We can put some pretty good video on there. We can do lots of things, and we would really stress the heck out of the vehicle on EM1 from a vehicle technical standpoint. We'd go into this distant retrograde orbit. It'd be a much more demanding mission. So there's pros and cons both ways, and it's hard to judge that aspect. But I look at it more kind of matter-of-factly. What do I gain technically by putting crew on? Why is it necessary to put crew on? What is the benefit of putting crew on? And that's what really drives us as we go forward.
Next question, please.
Next, we have Irene Klotz with Reuters. Your line is open.
Thank you. Bill Gerstenmaier, I guess it was earlier this month, you spoke quite eloquently about risk at that FAA conference and pointed out how, in hindsight, flying STS-1 was a far different reality than what you all thought it was before that mission was launched. So in light of that, and I understand that the loss of crew numbers are kind of guidelines, but what is the baseline loss of crew number for like EM2, and what would you be willing to accept for EM1?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll calculate all those numbers as we go forward. We've got numbers now. We're building models. The feasibility team will go look at that. We'll go pull all these studies together, and we'll see what we get in terms of numbers. But again, we'll be very cautious about what we go do. We'll do the right thing. I think it's also, when you look at STS-1, the reentry capability of a winged vehicle that had never been flown before, the Mach 25 reentry into the atmosphere, all of those things, there was a dramatically different vehicle and different profile than we are here. I mean, this is still pushing the envelope in some areas, but it's not as big a step technology-wise as what we actually did in the case of shuttle. The other thing here is, again, we had the ejection seats on STS-1, but here we have the abort system, and we'll judge the performance of the abort system. But again, we'll let the study sort all this out, and we'll see what we get as we go forward.
Next question.
Next, we have Joel Achenbach from the Washington Post.
Yes, thank you. So can you both just speak to whether you think this is a good idea? I'm trying to get a sense of, do you favor this? Why would NASA do this other than there's political pressure to do something bold during the first term of President Trump? Can you speak to that? Thank you.
Again, from my perspective, I don't see this as there's not pressure to go do this. This is something we're going to go evaluate, and we'll trade it back and forth in the study, and we'll see what the results look like coming out the other side, and we'll decide what we get when we get through the study and we see where we are. I've learned throughout my career that it's better if I don't have a preconceived decision about what the heck we really want to go do when I go into studies and actions. I would rather let the data drive us and let the information push us in the direction that's right. I find it encouraging that we were asked to go do this feasibility study. I find it was encouraging that they gave us a degree of freedom of a little bit of schedule delay of EM1 to see if that would help us, and they gave us the freedom of determining what this might potentially be in terms of cost increase to actually go do this. And then we can trade that against what we get from a technical performance gain, and I think that's a really good thing. So I don't have a preconceived position about whether I'm for this or against this. I think it's great that we get a chance to go look at this, and no matter what we do, even if we don't decide to go do this, we will now go back and we'll look and say, hey, some of these things that we found in this study, we should probably implement on EM1 anyway because it's going to make a more robust program. So we may make some changes on the vehicle, we may change some qualifications, we may change some testing to actually give us a better system overall. So this is a great opportunity for us to step back, reflect on what we're doing, look at the overall plan again, and see if there's any changes we want to make moving forward. So I'm very encouraged the fact that we get the opportunity to go do this study.
Yeah, and I too am, I'm undecided on this. I have not thought about it either way. We will let the identified risk and the benefits kind of drive us, as well as the data. From our previous assessment, we know it's going to take a significant amount of money and money that will be required fairly quickly to implement what we need to do. So it's a question of how we refine that funding levels and the phasing of the funding for the next 3 years, and see where it comes out. If we come out and determine that we're not going to do this, we still have a very exciting mission on EM1, and we have a plan to, as Gerst said, to stress the systems on Orion and test out redundant systems, which we probably wouldn't do with a crew on board. So there's benefits either way, and we just look forward to seeing what the answers are.
Next question, please.
Next, we have Frank Mooring with Aviation Week.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hello. Oh, okay. There's also a study underway, I believe, that would include possible use of Orion to deliver crew to the space station. It's maybe mandated congressionally. I just wonder how this study and the study on the commercial crew contingencies are playing together, and if they're distinct or if you're working that as well. Thank you.
We don't have a formal study underway looking at taking Orion to space station. It may be in an authorization act that's in the process of being approved, but at this point we don't have an official study looking at that.
We have had all along a mandate within the 2010 Authorization Act to maintain the capability to use Orion as a backup. But I will tell you that would be very challenging from the standpoint of attempting to do multiple, like every 6-month crew rotations. We are well behind the power curve to try to get there, and I think the funding levels to do that would be very prohibitive. But again, we're not studying that. That's just kind of what we got in our hip pocket right now.
There's really no tire relationship between any of these activities. And Orion is really a deep space vehicle. It is really designed, and the SLS that it sits on is designed to do missions around the moon and further distances. You can make it do the other things, but that's not what it's doing, or not what it's really designed to go do.
Before the next question, just a quick reminder, we only have a limited amount of time today, and we're discussing the EM1 study, so try to keep your questions specific to that. So with that, operator, the next question, please.
Next, we have Gina Sonseri with ABC News.
Yes, this is for Bill. Bill, what did you learn from EFT1 that will help speed up this process?
I can add a couple things, then Bill can add even more details. First of all, we got a really good chance to see the Orion propulsion system operate during re-entry on EFT1. And the propellant usage was really good on EFT1. It was actually better than anticipated. We also got to see the global positioning system, the GPS system, and the navigation system on Orion work, and that worked really, really, really well for us. We got to see the monolithic heat shield performance, which was good. We got to see all the parachute performance. We got to see the separation events going uphill. Just a lot of data that actually adds into the ability for us to put crew on this vehicle. So again, I think we need to not discount what we've already done in terms of testing. The fact that we have EFT1 behind us, that helps buy down some of the risk, and the fact that we had the pad board test also with Orion, that also gives us some confidence moving forward. And Bill, there's a lot of things we learned on EFT1. Maybe you got a couple more that I might have forgotten.
Just from an operational standpoint, how to operate it, how to command it. We hadn't flown for several years, at least domestic-based spacecraft. So it exercised our systems and exercised our ability to actually pull a mission off. And as Gerst said, things were so close and straight down the middle, there were very little deviations. Hit 85 of our 87 flight tests successfully. The only two we missed were with respect to the crew operating system that, as you might remember, we had 3 bags deflate on us. So we learned from that. We're in the process of certifying that system. We actually have completed over 50 tests. Unfortunately, the last test we did, we went in and drilled in a new port for a pressure transducer and may have induced damage. So we lost or deflated the bag on inflation. So we learned a lot, and we look forward, even with EM1 as it is today, an uncrewed mission, to learn even more.
And we also learned a tremendous amount about recovery out in the ocean too. So that's also important. So I think EFT1 factors very strongly into this discussion and feasibility study we're doing.
Next question, please.
Next, we have Keith Cowing from NASAWatch.com.
For Bill Gerstenmaier, did the White House ask or direct you specifically to put a crew on EM1? Did they explain why they wanted you to put a crew on EM1? And did they promise you all the funding, and repeat, funding required to make this happen if the decision was made to put a crew on EM1?
Again, the administration team, in concert with Robert, they asked us to go do this feasibility study, and that's what we're doing. We're off doing this feasibility study, and there was no discussion about funding level, schedule, other pieces, or other data. They just asked us to go do this feasibility study of putting crew on EM1. And I believe, again, I don't have direct evidence, but I believe the overall goal was just, could we fly crew earlier than we are today with EM2.
Next question, please.
Next, we have Bill Harwood from CBS News.
Hi. Thank you very much. Garth, just to follow up on that last question, could you give us maybe a little bit more detail on the origin of the idea, the timing of it? I mean, I'm really kind of curious, thinking about all the work you're telling us you would have to do to make this happen. It doesn't sound like something you guys ever would have dreamed of considering without direction from the transition team. Can you just kind of put all that in perspective for me? Thanks.
Yeah, I'd say we were looking at this a little bit on our own to see what we could do to enhance EM1. Originally EM1 did not have crew seats, and then we were able to add crew seats to EM1. EM1 also did not originally have any kind of mannequins or dummies associated with the flight to get radiation data and also look at reentry loading on crew members. We added that to EM1. So we've been kind of looking along the way of doing things to add EM1 to make it more realistic, to get us faster towards the systems that need to be checked out on EM2. Also the Orion program has been doing a lot of work of flying systems on board space station. So the carbon dioxide removal system has been on board station. It's operated for about 2,000 hours on station. So we're buying down risk associated with that. We have the waste management system that'll be used in Orion. It will go to space station and be checked out there. We've been doing a lot of demonstration stuff on station. So we've been kind of looking at this in a general sense. So this is not out of question of what they ask us. They may have got the idea for this based on discussions with us when we showed them what we're doing and what we're moving forward and how we're trying to keep the program on track. But I think that's the simplest way I can describe to you that I don't consider this a ton of extra work for us. I consider this stuff that'll actually give us a chance to step back and reflect on what we're doing and make sure we've really got all the right test objectives on EM1, whether it's with crew or without crew.
Next question.
We have James Dean with Florida Today.
Hi, thanks a lot. Mr. Gerstenmaier, wondered if you could tell us which astronauts are participating in this study, and could you characterize generally the office's reaction? Are they kind of gung-ho, eager to fly as one might expect as quickly as possible, or more circumspect? I think looking back at like STS-1, a number of problems were revealed, right, that maybe in hindsight you'd hope not to put a crew at risk for. So just wonder if you could characterize the astronauts' feeling about this.
Yeah, so we've picked one representative from the crew office that has flight experience, and then they had the ability to reach back into the rest of the office. And I'm not going to speculate on what the crew office feelings are or thoughts. They're diverse as they usually are, and we'll see what we get through the feasibility study as they go through this. But again, I think we'll get a very solid review. We picked team members that are not directly associated with the Orion program, and that was done on purpose so they could stay focused on EM1 and EM2 as we move forward.
Next question, please.
We have Kenneth Chang with New York Times.
Hi, thank you. This is for Bill. You mentioned you have leeway of a schedule of about 1 year. How much leeway do you have with the budget? And when does this report be delivered?
Yeah, we don't have any specific guidance in terms of either schedule or budget. It was just a feasibility study. I kind of put the arbitrary limit in that I wanted to look through 2019. I didn't want to go much beyond 2019. That's kind of my constraint, because I felt that if we went much beyond 2019, then we might as well fly EM2 and actually do the plan we're on. And the other thing was that also makes us decide fairly quickly we want to go do this to get in that time frame. Otherwise, then this could stay on, and I don't like having the teams work parallel options. I'd like them to get down to one option and move forward. So that there was no constraint in terms of either schedule or budget. Our intent is probably in the next month or so to have some of our preliminary findings and start briefing those through the agency. I think this study will not necessarily be a standalone study, but it will fit in our budget discussions that with the administration and with OMB and with Congress as we go forward. Whatever we come out here will obviously flow into the fiscal year 18 budget process that's going to get kicked off here in the next couple of weeks. So I think this study is not a standalone study in a sense, but it will actually fit into our overall program and fit forward and move forward. So there's not an absolute crisp date of when we're going to be done, but our target team results we want to have in a pretty polished format, probably in roughly about a month.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one more question.
Next, we have Sean Rossman from USA Today.
My question was just asked and answered. I just wanted to know when it would anticipated to be finished.
All right. Well, thank you all. You can listen to a replay of this teleconference later today by dialing toll-free at 888-335-7273. The passcode is 22417. The replay will be available until March 24th. You can follow along with progress on SLS and Orion online at www.nasa.gov/Journey to Mars. If you have additional questions for our participants today, please reach out to the NASA Office of Communications at 202-358-1100 or email me at cheryl.m@warner.warner@nasa.gov. We will do our best to accommodate requests. Thank you for joining us today.
This concludes today's conference. Thank you for your participation. You may disconnect your lines at this time.